Self-discovery, acceptance, and nervous system regulation serve as the foundation and wellspring for my practice. Pulling directly from a personal lived experience as a diagnosed neurodivergent person, the antidotes of this lived experience become material and emotions become objects. My artwork fuses my daily emotions, known and unknown, into the material, creating something new and separate from myself that acts as an investigative tool in deciphering the emotions that I cannot accurately name. This is something that's referred to as a lexicon, in which I feel emotions, but I cannot identify them unless they are really, really intense ones. This symbiotic relationship between maker and material, creating something new, is best explained when object-oriented ontology is considered, as the work then becomes a thing in of itself. This somatic act, or the physical act, of creating the artwork provides an avenue in which my overstimulated nervous system can focus solely on the feeling of the clay in my hands as I manipulate it, or the feeling of my arm moving through space as I paint. The resulting thesis work can be found somewhere in the nexus of diary and material exploration. Repetition being an overarching theme in my work, it functions in a couple of different ways. There's obviously repetition in action or movement that serves as a type of nervous system regulation through physicality. Words such as sanctuary requires the repeated physical action of pulling the ink brayer over the ink, which is then forced through the silk stream to distribute the ink onto the surface of the chiffon. Pull the ink over the image, move the fabric. Push the ink back to the top of the screen, pull the ink over the image, push, move, pull. Repetition and physical exertion combined to force me to focus on my breathing and on that which I can control. The lights may be too bright, the sounds too intense, so I push, I move, I pull. I repeat those actions until the chiffon is covered in a murder of prose that will soon take flight. You might ask, why prose? Prose, as another added avenue of repetition, are a source of hyperfocus. They are a bit of a metaphor for me personally, as it can be often maligned as evil or a harbinger of doom, but some further research in an undergrad anthropology class, crows are actually incredibly intelligent creatures, and they have a family setup similar to humans actually. Like their siblings take care of the younger siblings, and mom and dad work together. It's quite beautiful actually. And if you're really kind, crows will revisit you and bring you gifts. But the opposite is also true. If you go out of your way to be mean to them, they will remember that, and they will tell their children, and their children's children, and their children's children. And they will remember that face, despite never having met. So moving forward, words such as tactile, which is amorphous, number 6, again shows like the repeated use of the amorphous curvilinear shape, which is a source of comfort for me. These shapes are usually larger in scale to evoke the sense of the body at rest. One 24-hour day is represented by one pre-cut circle that was roughly 3 to 6 inches. It wasn't a mixture of porcelain and paper clay, porcelain because I enjoy the tactile quality of it, but paper clay was chosen as a means to include strength whenever it got super duper thin. before I started grad school, and about 2 months later I lost my dad. So here are all the different various days that even nearly 3 years later, I'm still grappling with. Hanging this work, I started crying because I wished my dad was still here. So I mean, it serves in that function. Then upstairs, I let the materials more or less be the color. I'm choosing not to alter those things. Green is more of just kind of a peaceful feeling in this one. Or it's either peaceful or it's, I don't know what it was. And then yellow is those distinct moments of happiness, because since losing my dog, I mean, I've gotten another one, and he's a bit of a goober. And so it's fun to explore those happy moments with the yellow. I'm a bright spot.
Thank you for sharing that. Do we have other questions for Liz? Yes.
So, I have somebody who's autistic. I was only diagnosed at age 18. One of my special interests is audio engineering, and looking at your sculpture here, seeing how the birds go from like lower to higher, and I imagine like the sounds of like wings flapping, or birds calling each other to go to another place. And like, have you ever considered incorporating audio into your work? Because I see here that you incorporate lights that are moving as well.
Yeah, I have worked with audio in the past, and audio was considered for this work as well. I often will intentionally choose audio because I'm sure, as you may also know, and I love the fact that you're in audio engineering. That's super exciting. I have to be very intentional with the sounds that I choose, because by and large, a lot of daily chatter and things like that really get to me, and I have to like either wear headphones or earplugs or various things to kind of, I have to find ways to mitigate, because my brain cannot differentiate from the sound over here or the sound over there, or someone talking to me, or a really loud sound. So it makes no priority. My brain can't prioritize. And so I have used audio. I had to be kind of respectful of the other work that was here. And I think for this work in particular, that might be something to explore at a later date. But my favorite version of audio that I ever did was, it was based off of binaural beats. Like whenever you have headphones on. Yeah, there's like 2 different frequencies that your brain will mash together and create a different frequency, but it has a bit of a calming effect. But I just played it on stereo, and it was loud enough that it was resonant enough that it almost felt comforting. Although there were a few people who felt disconcerted by it, which was quite interesting. So it was like watching some people experience what I normally experience, which is the discomfort. But there were a lot of people that enjoyed it. So
That's interesting to know. I'm currently taking Sight and Sound with Dr. Mesa. I don't know if you've heard about that class.
yeah, he's on my committee. I love him.
Yeah.
That's a good class.
Yeah. Thank you for answering.